They are off. Rebecca Harris has the white pieces in the first game, and what's it gonna be? Magnus narrowly won the pole, but we just saw a demolition job from Naroditsky against Alireza. Can he do it one more time?
Well, same 12 game, same match format, and I think it's anybody's game.
Huh? Yes.
Okay, so I mean, anything can happen. Black in this first game here, Magnus Carlsen, we are watching it from his perspective, seems to be off to a very good start. He's got more space here in the center. He might put a rook on e3 at some point. Instead, he chooses to exchange. But in general, he is very, very safe here. Material is equal. But that extra space does give you a little bit more chances. White, however, shuts things down. Seems to have actually calmed the problems, managed to exchange a lot of pieces, and now, well, Magnus does signal the intention to continue to play on. But I think Naroditsky is a lot more comfortable. And again, Naroditsky has impressed not just with his play, but with his speed. And we're seeing here that he certainly has an edge. Now, Black has a lot more space in this position, but the problem is it's also very, very locked down. How do you make progress? And
is there a way?
I don't see a way, and it seems, judging by the fact that they repeated, that the players don't either. So that's a first round draw. Not a result that Magnus will mind, because he does have the white pieces now.
Look at how many players look at how many games the players have played, by the way. Over 300 games against each other. The first one was squared, and here Magnus now with the white pieces.
Yeah, and Magnus with the white pieces, he's going for a little bit of a calm, conservative setup. Daniel Naroditsky, he is such an incredible tactical player that it may be a conscious decision. Let's just make it a relatively calm position. And White again going for the same approach that we saw in the first game, grabbing space. So Magnus has managed to grab more space here on the queen side.
Did I say over 300? My apologies. The honorary. That was misspoken. My maths are just not good enough to figure out that 500 plus 300 is more than 300. Over 800 games against each other.
And here we see that Magnus, who definitely has the lifetime edge against Danya, is doing great here. But queen e2, check, missed. You cannot go queen f2 because this drops. And so Danya is able to collect this pawn. It's a huge pawn. But wait a second, the knight on f6 was dropping. Now you do get a lot of checks and a lot of pawns. But is it going to be enough? Queen takes e4. We see queen f3. Black will probably choose to keep the queens on the board, but that c6 pawn does drop as a result. I'm not so sure if that is such a great situation. White is up a piece, but no pawns in front of his king. This pawn on a7, how much of a factor will that decide? The queen is really, really well placed. Bishop drops back to g1. We do have knight g3 check though. Queen takes, queen b8 check. Is an option. Queen g2 actually was a double attack. This pawn is going to decide the game. That's going to be game over. Magnus collecting the point. It all happened so fast, but Magnus also pressing on the clock.
Big reaction once again from Daniel, who's not happy, but Magnus super focused. They both clearly want this very much.
Yeah, and Magnus here getting into a position that is very sort of it's like a Caro-Kann with these pawns here, very kind of trendy type of positions to play. Back in the day they thought you cannot have your pawns like this, but nowadays they realize one of the benefits is you get an extra pawn defending your king, and in bullet, kingside attacks are very, very important, so having that extra pawn can sometimes help you more than the problems that come later in an endgame with double pawns. Rook e8, just trying to bring the rook into play. One of the key decisions is where are we going to get this bishop? Huge move, huge sequence of combination. Amazing sequence there. But wait a second, did he trick himself? Rook e5.
Look at the player's reaction.
I don't think Magnus had seen any of that idea, but then the queen got trapped. And both players, Danya kind of has this smile on his face like, oh my god, I play an amazing tactic. And in the end, the world champion sort of escapes. And now, with two minor pieces against the rook, Magnus is in control. The pawn on b3 will fall because the rook was attacked. The pawn is dropped. a4. We see bishop c5. We're going to see b5. And that pawn majority is going to be tried to be used. Maybe we're going to move that knight to c4 to put pressure here. Or simply Magnus goes for the more direct approach. And after c takes b4, knight c1 decides the game. Very nasty fourth. And we see Magnus, he's up 2 games already. And Danya needs to get into the match ASAP. We see a Spanish on the board here. Naroditsky, an expert, but Magnus, arguably the world's best in these kind of positions. Well, the world's best, full stop. But in these positions, maybe the absolute greatest of all time. These e4, e5 positions. Then again, let's see what Naroditsky can do. The game has shifted to something more aggressive. White with his pawn on h5, understandably wants to attack. Black is breaking in the center. Black will keep his options. d4. Hitting the knight on the pawn, that's a really, really nice move. You don't really want to take because now this pawn is weak. Black has had to give up this knight because of the attack on the queen, and I really like Magnus's position here. He's in control, he's picked up a pawn, and all of the pieces are just very, very strong. And Black's pawn on g5, that may in the future become a target. Rook d3, by the way, preventing this tactical idea, and Black goes all in. He wants f5, he wants to attack in the center. That's where he has his best placed pieces, but Magnus not afraid of this attack. Knight goes to d5, and there's another exchange. Magnus is in control. Naroditsky does not look too happy, and that's understandable. This position is very, very close to resignable. Of course, you're going to play on in bullet, but that pawn on b7 and rook d8 check ideas are coming in. Maybe another check on b4. White just needs to coordinate. He offers a queen exchange. Of course, Black is always going to decline that. Queen back, queen d1. Black has to keep declining, but the problem is your knight, you're down in exchange. This knight is incredibly passive. a3 to kill off these possibilities, and now we're going to see queen advance. Now if you check, I don't have to block, and sooner or later I'm just going to keep on piling the pressure on this knight, which is completely out of the game. Magnus taking a different approach. He just wants to push the pawn, and his pawn is faster than Black's majority here. We could even see a quick resignation. That's a full rook, and there we go, the resignation. Magnus crushing advantage. That's a 3-point gap already after 4 games.
Huge, absolutely huge. We'll try and get even more of Magnus's face, the full Magnus experience, and they are off a huge lead for Magnus, 3.5.
Yeah, and Naroditsky, he absolutely needs to get off the get off the mark here. He needs a win, and he needs it fast against the world champion. Yeah. But I like Black's play here already. Black has an extra pawn in the center. That's usually useful, and a bunch of pressure. White already having to react. 95, beautiful combination. The point is you give up a piece, but the bishop on d3 falls. Bishop g5 striking back, looking to collect this. Now, the material is actually level, but the position I think is really, really nice for Black. The bishop tends to be a little bit better in these positions where there are pawns on both sides of the board. King f7 defending the pawn, rook e8 defending again. White does have a huge trump in this pawn. Bishop h6, a really, really nice move. Knight f4. You might be tempted by some sacrificial ideas. He goes in a different direction. Knight e5, by the way, so there is no threat of capturing this pawn. Maybe knight e5 check, and now knight d7 check, king goes back. And maybe some knight c5 ideas here, some little trickery. c7, the point is if you take c8 queen, well, Naroditsky has managed to actually trick the world champion, and he is rook h6 check was even an idea there. He goes in a different direction, rook d7, king g2, Naroditsky is up in exchange, and this is the game. And wait a second, he's up a full... Magnus forgot, yes. Magnus seems to have forgotten about his piece, and just at that moment, well... we have a match on our hands.
We do. Daniel gets his first win. Very important to get into the match. Magnus still has a 2-point lead. 3.5, 1.5. Let's remind everyone for the same final, same format. First, best of 12. So first to 6.5 points.
Piece sacrifice already by Magnus. He means business in this game. He got 2 pawns, and the problem for Naroditsky is he needs to develop his pieces. But how are you going to get that knight out? The e5 square is covered. If you don't get that knight out, the bishop doesn't play, the rook doesn't play. This position is very, very scary. But knight f6 surprises me. You can take, maybe drop the bishop back to f8. Now we understand, or rather, I understand Carlsen's idea. I think he understood from the start, right? But can Naroditsky castle? He cannot. This queen is very, very annoying. You might want to kick out the queen. Instead, he reinforces the knight, puts pressure on c2. That's a really nice move because he might even bring the queen back, and now he can castle. But Magnus is attacked.
I would be very scared castling into this, but I guess the king couldn't stay in the center.
Yeah, what else to do? e4, I really like this. Giving up a pawn. The idea is to bring the knight to e5, but you have to be careful. You're not up that much material because white has a few pawns for that. The rook on f1 here. The bishop is hanging, so you do have to exchange the queens. The knight comes to e3, knight f5. This is great play from Naroditsky. We might see more pieces, and the pawn on f6 drops, going after this pawn on d5. You can even take it because of the threat, back rank mate.
And Magnus resigns immediately.
Amazing
that was
game.
Super nice tactic. And Daniel pulls another one back. Now just 1 point behind, and he has the white pieces, and we have a match on our hands.
This is huge. It's a potential equalizer. But of course, it's Magnus Carlsen. You cannot take anything for granted. And Magnus has shown time and time again that when the pressure is on, he is incredible. And has he tricked Naroditsky? I think he might have, because knight c5 hits the queen, and now b5, or first d3 he goes for, but I'm thinking, b5 is not possible because knight takes bishop, does come with check. Now he wins this rook. So in fact, it seems to be Naroditsky. I mean, I have no idea. This is just such high-level bullet. But it seems to be that Naroditsky is in all right shape here, or is he not? Rook h3, trying to just support here. What is the material balance? It's been such a crazy game in this one in particular. Knight e4, these knights, monsters here, although you can't take them. That's a huge one for Naroditsky. And in the end, the dust is settled. Naroditsky is up a piece against the world champion. And I think this position is objectively winning. And Magnus doesn't even try. It's
Magnus
3.5.
is not happy. You didn't see his reaction, but he's not happy. The match is tied.
I mean,
what a comeback from Daniel. The first game was a draw. Then Magnus wins 3 in a row. And Daniel says, I don't care, and pulls 3 back. Simply astonishing.
Daniel showing the level that allowed him to just completely demolish Alireza Firouzja in the previous round, and he's back in it. e6, by the way, not possible. Bishop takes e6. There is an x-ray. Knight g5. Magnus wants revenge here in this game, and it looks like he's going to get it. Bishop h6, exploiting this pin. Bishop takes g5, getting rid of this piece. However, you still have to defend against this threat. That's done. e6 came with check. That's why knight g7. Knight b6, a crushing move hitting the rook. And the point is, e takes d7 is also coming. That's going to cost you a piece. Naroditsky resigns. 18-move victory for the world champion.
4.5, 3.5. Magnus takes the lead again. Sip of water. Didn't see what that was. And both players actually look at their... now not. They had the same exact thinking pose. Anyway, back to the action.
We've got another Spanish on the board. These are positions you cannot castle, by the way. These are positions where Magnus excels at, but so does Naroditsky. That's why we're just getting them time and time again. Very classical positions. Magnus's position seems to be all right, but so does White. So wait a second, this pawn drops with check. That's huge, but now you have 2 problems to face. Your bishop is hanging and your queen is hanging against this threat, and maybe Naroditsky did not see this. He may have been tricked. If he moves his queen, he's going to lose the bishop. He supports, he gives up on that bishop, and his hope is an attack against the somewhat vulnerable king. Here comes knight e6 check. That allows this exchange of the bishop. Usually that's a good thing because it strengthens this piece, but the main thing, wait a second, queen f7 check. That must have been missed by the world champion. And queen takes g7 here is on the cards, and queen takes g6 rather. The knight is hanging. I think Naroditsky is in control. Naroditsky is going to take this one down because you can take this piece. You can win this piece here on f5. It's just a free piece, and you cannot even exchange. Maybe, I don't know what we're going to see. We see rook takes. I'm a little bit surprised by that. That was an exchange sacrifice. The reason is the knight couldn't move. Bishop c2, defending the queen. Now you can move the knight. Maybe you will even see knight takes g4. That would allow for an exchange of the queens. White says no. Naroditsky says, your king is a lot less safe than mine, so I'm going to play h3 here. And, well, what do you want to do? Carlsen has gone into the tank, and that's a huge moment. I mean, now finally the queens come off the board, but he's picked up a pawn in the process. It's 6 pawns against 4, so that's bishop and 2 pawns against the rook. Nominally, that's about equal, but black's rooks are...
The time situation is incredibly close as well.
Yeah, black's rooks, however, they're so strong, and this pawn is very annoying. So we can see that Naroditsky had to give up that pawn on f2 just to bring his king into attack, and he wants to get this pawn, but Carlsen is the one in control. The question is, will he be able to convert with such little time on the clock? There we go, we see it, that conversion, the queen, and Naroditsky resigns.
And Magnus now with it not only, and we see there I didn't see if it was a fist pump, but Magnus is pumped because he is just 1 point away from winning the first ever Katara International Chess Tournament, Bullet Edition.
And yeah, and Magnus playing again queen's pawn openings here. That's been sort of the call. e4, e5 positions as black. Queen's pawn as white. That's where I feel he must consider are his best chances in the vast amount of games that they played. They played almost 1,000 games against each other, and Magnus, as you say, 1 game away. His position looks great here. You have to be very careful if you take this because there are knight f6 check ideas, unleashing this queen and the rook. Bishop d3 makes a lot of sense. You want h5, and black doesn't really want to play h5 himself because it would give this square. So we see that combination of the bishop and the pawn, and king h8. Really, really not ideal. Knight f6, a huge move. If you take here, take here. The point is your queen is hanging. Notice the power of x-rays. You cannot take this knight. The pawn on g6 is going to fall. And if you get a position like this, the knight on h4, knight takes g6, we could see some serious problems. But some tactics back from Naroditsky, who manages to get rid of the h-pawn. That's actually really a huge achievement for black, but it's cost him his queen side, and these two pawns are going to be monstrous. e6, a really nice blow. We see the structure, we see the bad structure, we see the king in trouble. e5, nice move, hitting the queen, hitting the rook. Now rook d1, going for the counterplay, but the dust has settled in this position, and white is up a pawn. He's only up a pawn. Thank God for Naroditsky that he was able to pick up this pawn on b2, because there are some chances, but well, Naroditsky will do well to hold a draw here. This pawn in knight and pawn endgames, these pawns are incredibly problematic. Knights are known for having real problems against the rook pawns. And we see Naroditsky who wants to just exchange these two pawns, but a5, nice calculation. The point is, when you push a6, you cannot catch the pawn. So Naroditsky goes in a different direction. Knight f2, if you take this pawn, takes, there is no way, you cannot catch the pawn. And we see flag, and the world champion shows that he is number one once again.
Magnus Carlsen, we have our winner.
Magnus.
Okay, so let me see. We are going to join the call in a second and hear it from the world champion.
But that's the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be fast-paced and quite some action.
Yeah, absolutely. I messed up I had you muted. You had me muted at the start. I had you muted at the start of your answer for the chat, but you were talking about how happy you were. Let's talk about, well, first of all, the final. Daniel had put on such a great show. How did you feel? And your game in the semi-final against Penguin had gotten off to a rocky start. How did you feel going into the final?
Well, I felt a lot better after I had this 7-1 stretch to close out the match against Penguin when I actually played pretty well. So I was feeling confident, but I was a bit spooked by the fact that Daniel just destroyed Alireza in that match. That was just an incredible sight. It seemed like at the end, Alireza was spending so much time and he was really flustered. So I didn't know what to expect. And then, of course, the final got off to a very good start for me. But after that, it was just mayhem and just trying to get there by some means.
Well, let's talk about Daniel. First of all, congratulations as well on your second place. Finished the final, I understand, didn't go the way you wanted it to, but what a demolition job against Alireza indeed. Tell us, what were your feelings about that?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say that it's a big honor to participate in any tournament that Magnus is playing in, and especially to play in the final is just a dream scenario. Yeah, I mean, the first two matches I was somehow very nervous. During the second match against Josef, my hands were literally shaking. I couldn't seem to find the zen, but when I won that second game against Alireza, something changed in me, and I just started playing more confidently. I didn't worry about the results. And, of course, when I was up 5.5, 1.5, the nightmare scenarios of losing 5 in a row started swimming before my mind. But, then despite being down a piece, I got very, very lucky in the last game. And, the final was interesting once I recovered from the 3-0 or 3.5 half start. I thought, I was very confident. But then that fourth game I lost was, I think, a very bad opening choice by me, which was extremely well punished by Magnus. And after that, there were some ups and downs in the following games, but just didn't quite go my way. So really appreciate the opportunity. I had a fantastic time.
Well, great to hear from both of you. One question, you're both absolute bullet monsters. How high does bullet rank in your favorite type of chess to play?
I mean, I'll start, but it goes a bit back and forth. But if it's like what I want to do just for fun, I would guess it's probably at the top.
We just had another camera glitch. Daniel, I'll let you answer the question as well.
Yeah, I love bullet. I mean, the shorter the time control, the more I like it. I'm not even ashamed to admit it. I'd have to rank blitz and bullet at the very top, 3 minute and 1 minute. It's just so fun, so many ups and downs, and places a very high premium on lazy people like me who don't like to calculate. So, definitely right up my alley. But it's, yeah.
I guess then my next question is probably superfluous. If there was another tournament like that, would we see you both again?
Absolutely. I'm the first to sign up for such a tournament.
Yeah, I wouldn't see a single reason why not.
Another
I
question.
was just happy I didn't have to qualify.
Magnus, did you watch the qualifiers? Any of them?
Yeah, I was watching. Well, I was watching the second qualifiers when I was watching the Hammer trying to qualify, and was just such a heartbreak that he didn't make it in the end. But yeah, with and then like 3 players on 110 points, he was on 109. It was amazing. So it was a lot of fun to watch as well.
Absolutely. Speaking of the qualifiers, Daniel, you only played in the last one.
Yeah.
You're very confident, I guess, or were you not able to make any of the first two?
I was technically able to make the 3 a.m. one, but I figured I'd rather get a lot of sleep and rest well and play one qualifier than sort of play all 3, but not be prepared for it. So, I'm confident in my bullet abilities when I've gotten enough rest and I have some coffee by my side. So, the gamble paid off. Yeah, I mean, I played quite well yesterday, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was
2 days ago.
A crushing performance in the qualifier. The chat wants to ask a question about your final match and that insane rook d5 tactic. I forgot which game it is.
Yeah, the bishop f7 probably, the game where I took the queen on a5 and then rook d5 followed. Did you see rook d5 from the start?
No. I was just
insane.
Lucky. No, I was just lucky. I blundered bishop f7, so...
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I mean, it took me a while to realize the queen literally has no squares.
I mean, if you saw the camera, you would have seen me just shaking my head.
Yeah, I was too busy shaking my own head.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be that lucky, but sometimes you are.
Yeah, good players are lucky, as they say.
Yesterday it was just luck. Because it's the kind of position you're not supposed to allow bishop f7 there ever, and then.
Well, what about last couple of questions? Magnus, well, you're winning everything. You just had an incredibly thrilling final of the Magnus Carlsen tour against Hikaru Nakamura, which the Magnus tour, it has been keeping you very busy, and you've just announced the second tour. So what do you make of, in the crisis, there's been such a boom in online chess. So what do you make of all these developments?
Obviously the backdrop is less than ideal in the sense that there's a worldwide crisis, but for us we're just trying to make the best of it, and it's wonderful to see all of these initiatives, and I think for a long time people didn't believe that it was possible to have serious tournaments online, and now you see that. There most certainly is, and in different formats as well. So I think that's a huge step forward for chess, and I think we will certainly see even more online chess in the future in real serious tournaments.
Absolutely. Daniel, you've also been keeping busy, streaming your YouTube channel. So tell us, how have these last few months been for you, chess-wise?
Yeah, of course there's been a boom, and it's sort of been like an all-you-can-eat buffet. At times I pile my plate up a little too high, but I'm trying to do everything: teaching, streaming, YouTube, playing in these bullet tournaments. So I'm very, very busy. It's amazing to see how well chess has adapted to this crisis, to this most unusual of times. And I've been very, very privileged to be in the chess world at this time, and it's been going for the most part great. And I'm going to continue to work on my stream and my YouTube channel, and see where I can take this.
Well, we have 2,500 people. For everyone who isn't following Daniel already, do that now. Magnus, you were streaming the titled arena on Saturday on the Aufwärtsspiel channel. You also sometimes stream on the Mascanism. Can we expect more there?
It will come least expected.
I wouldn't have expected anything else. Final question, talking about your future plans. Magnus, you will be playing at the Norway Chess Tournament, which starts in early October, which will be the first tournament to return, where over-the-board chess returns. So how do you look forward to that and on your home turf in Norway?
Obviously, it's gonna feel a bit different in the sense that I think there will be safety measures that players are not used to. But overall, just happy to play. Good field with amazing players, and it's gonna feel a bit weird, I think, at the start, but I'm looking forward to it.
Great. And Daniel, to close off the interview, tell us what's next for you.
I don't have too many plans. Of course, everything is in flux, so I'm just gonna keep grinding the stream. Of course, I'm trying also to find some time for training, because when tournaments resume, I do want to make a push for 2700. I think Rebecca has some unfinished business there, but once again, I just wanted to thank the organizers and Magnus for this amazing tournament. So I'll definitely be playing in all of these in the months to come.
Great. Well, once again, from our side, congratulations to both of you for putting up such an incredible show. Thank you for being such great sports, and we certainly look forward to seeing more from you in the near future. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona.